going through Let's Test cables. On this side of the table, we have cables for our bottom reel, typically a PR1200 or similar. On this side of the table, we have cables for the top reel, which is for our lateral cable. These two cables go from the 24-pin connector on the side of the wall out towards the end of the cable towards the tractor. The main difference is this one has the yellowtail built into it, whereas this one is the 12-pin and external yellowtail. These two cables are similar to these in that they go to the ends of the cable. So just like this one is 12-pin plus yellowtail to get to the tractor, and this one has the yellowtail built in. But the big difference is instead of going to the 24-pin connector on the side of the wall, we're going all the way back to the master controller. So this one would be master controller all the way out to the 12-pin yellowtail, then tractor. And this one would be master controller all the way out to the tractor. The big difference is this cable has an extra cable which is specifically for the encoder. So this is going to give us function for the lateral footage, going all the way to the VL5000 in the rack. On this side of the table, this is all for the top reel, the lateral cable. We'll start with this cable, which basically bypasses the main part of the reel. So the cable that comes out of the wall and goes into the top reel will instead plug into this, and the other end of the cable will go into your orange push cable. We also have a shorter orange test push cable, which can be used in place of the long one for troubleshooting purposes. And then there's the flex section at the end to complete the circuit to our camera. There's one more cable that is to bypass the top reel. And this one, instead of starting it halfway through the truck, it starts at the master controller all the way in the rack again, just like these cables over here. And that will go all the way to your camera. This yellowtail, we recommend to have at least 2 of these on the truck. One as a backup that you can use when yours goes out, and the other one solely as a test cable. It's good to have one of these that has never touched the sewer just as a test cable, so you know that it's working good if you need to test something later. Similarly, these flex sections, it's good to have one as a backup, at least one as a backup, and then one as just a test cable. There's 2 different kinds of these, and that's because one has a sonde antenna and the other one does not. The one with the sonde antenna is used with the camera that does not have the sonde built in, so an ST930, something like that. And this one is meant for the cameras that has a sonde already built into it, so like a P3600, 3601, something like that. Before you use any test cables, make sure your system is off, and by off I mean the master controller is turned off within the software. The master controller physical button switch does not need to be off, but it can be off to be safe. The first test cable that we have here is the 24-pin to yellowtail. So this is going to bypass the bottom reel. We can disconnect our existing RedMax cable, plug in the test Redmax cable. And then plug in this end of our test cable directly into the back of the tractor. These connectors will be kind of snug. With this test cable, we are removing the entire bottom reel from the 24 pin all the way to where the cable plugs into the tractor, to make sure you don't have an issue in there. This test cable goes from the 24 pin on the wall all the way to the yellowtail, which then goes into the tractor. This cable isolates the bottom reel from the rest of the system. If you have an issue anywhere between the 24 pin and your tractor, this will let us know that the problem's there. This cable goes to the 12 pin connector and then yellowtail. So the first thing we'll do is come over here and disconnect this cable. This is the one that goes to our reel. The other cable here, if you have one of these, is just mounted on a dummy plug. So you can see, because there's nothing else coming from it. Both of these are going up to the rack, and this one is going to the reel. So we'll unplug that, plug in our test cable, on this end is the 12 pin connector, which we can connect to a yellowtail. Make sure you line up the dots here. If something isn't going in right, take it easy. It's possible you could bend pins if you go in at an angle or force something that shouldn't be forced. This end will plug into the tractor, so I'm going to disconnect the yellowtail that goes to the reel and plug in our test yellowtail. There we have it. Our next two test cables are skipping the 24 pin connector and going all the way back to the master controller. The main difference is when you're testing with these two cables, you're eliminating the section of cable from the 24 pin to the master controller. This cable is similar to the first cable we were looking at on this truck, in that it's the 12 pin on this end, which will use the yellowtail to plug into your tractor. The other end of this cable will plug into the back of our master controller, which in this case is right here. There is the primary reel cable, which is red, like the bottom reel, and that's the one we're going for right now. So we can take this cable, find the large notch on the top, and that will be the top on the master controller. It's a twist lock connector, so you should be able to twist it until you feel the lock. The next cable goes from the master controller directly to the tractor, eliminating the yellowtail. This cable additionally has an extra cable going to footage 2 on the overlay. This is for our lateral footage. This end will go into the master controller, and then this end will go behind our overlay. We're going to find that top thicker pin and line that up on top of the master controller, and then turn the twist lock until it clicks. Then on the other side of the rack, on this truck we have our overlay. There's footage encoder 1 and footage encoder 2. Number 2 is where this cable is going to go to. This cable bypasses everything between the master controller and the tractor and has the lateral footage cable included. The next test cables we have are for the lateral cable, or the top reel. This one here will bypass our lateral reel at the reel. This connector here is exactly the same as the connector on the right side of the reel. So we will disconnect that. This cable is then going to connect to our test cable. The other end of this cable will connect to either the orange test push cable or standard push cable. There are 2 bars in here that will need to be aligned with the corresponding holes. All the brass pins go into the corresponding brass pin positions. Once you have that orange cable on, we can connect a flex section. This orange cable is the same on both ends. Once you have your flex section on, you can put on your camera. This will isolate from the cable that connects to the reel all the way out until your camera. The last test cable goes directly from the back of the master controller all the way to our lateral camera. So to get to that, we need to lift this monitor, open up the doors, find the auxiliary cable reel. This gray cable goes to our top reel. We'll rotate the click lock counterclockwise. The other end of this cable will go to our camera. Just twists on there. This cable goes directly from the master controller to the camera, eliminating the cable that goes from the master controller through the wall all the way to the LET's cable reel, all the way through the orange cable, through the flex section, and then finally to the camera. When using this test cable, it is advisable to use the video equalizer and reset button. This is used to reset your video to clear it due to the length of cable.